touched a lot of metrics, and I think we're going to go into a little bit more detail on the metrics topic, because it's another question we get asked all of the time is, great, how do I, first of all, prove the ROI of my PRM once I've actually made the investment? Secondly, what kind of ROI metrics am I going to commit to the business to actually give me the investment to go through the process of implementing and automating? And I think at this process, once you start going into this, defining what are those metrics going to be, what are we going to be tracking, what are we going to be measuring, what are we going to see results from, it's also important again to step back a bit and think about, okay, these are our goals and objectives. If I look at how it is right now, what are the kind of pain points within our channel operations, within our processes that are hindering the achievement of the goal? Right. So, for example, if your partner onboarding is slow, that means the partners are going to take too long to start generating revenue. Right. So if your lead management is flawed, you're going to take you longer to get those opportunities closed. And again, what that'll help you do is, as you build out the business case for PRM, it helps you to prioritize those features and those characteristics within the PRM that will help with that decision making and also the arguments. And so as you set those priorities, think about the KPIs in parallel. And Brenda, I think if you pull onto the next slide, and this is by no means an exhaustive list. Scott, you've already said some that we didn't have on there, but these are 20 that we've seen from our customers that have started building into the business cases. They're looking for that funding and that investment for PRM. Right, and this is obviously, factors like partner revenue growth, percentage of revenue, number of partners onboarded. We will share the slides afterwards. I'm not going to go through each and every metric here, but I'd love to open it up to the panel and get your thoughts on what good looks like, because good metrics are a critical foundation for any kind of business case. It makes it easy for a non-channel person or an executive coming out of finance or sales to fully understand the kind of value that it's going to bring to the business. So the question is, and Dave, I think we'll start with you this time, but again, Scott, Kenneth, feel free to chime in as you see fit. What do you think are some of the key metrics that our audience should be considering when assessing the return of investment that they'll potentially get out of a PRM, and why do you think those metrics would be important?
Yeah, so there's quite a bit on the screen that the audience can really dig into, hopefully take a screenshot of and live by. What I think is for the channel community, for folks that are in Scott's position, or when I was the global channel chief of VMware, I actually took like the CRM system that has, the full funnel in it of awareness and interest and desire and award, and then some customer success after it. So you've got the CRM base, but PRM actually sits above that, because the top of the funnel then truly is partner recruitment, partner enablement, training, quote to cash, bill of materials, then into awareness, interest, desire, and award in CRM. So the way I always positioned the PRM importance is, do you truly want new top of funnel for your CRM? And that's where PRM sits atop. So there's a set of metrics that sit atop these pieces that are also in the CRM component, because the vendors field is going to report out on a lot of these metrics that are on the screen. So what are the metrics above that create true top of funnel, as Scott highlighted, channel sourced deals, which is every ELT in every company that we deal with is like, don't need the fulfillment, don't want to pay a lot for the fulfillment, I need sourced. And so delivering those metrics that says we've found the right partners, we've enabled the right partners, they are now in the quote to cash system, they are now automated through PRM into CRM through channel mechanics. That's where the juice comes from in the top of funnel, plus all of these that you see. So I'll take a breath there and see if you guys align with that.
Yeah, that's great, Dave. And Margaret, I hadn't seen this chart, really great chart. So I kind of was thinking as Scott was talking, it's almost like how could Scott do what he done without a system? So the opposite of achieving what Scott achieved is doing nothing, right? how could he cater for his MSPs? How could he cater for those different sales motions of his traditional resellers, his distributors? How could he record what was channel-led business versus something we give to the partners, etc. So think about all of those things that Scott and Scott's team done to grow the channel business from single digit to over 30%. Try and do that without a system. It's not possible, and even if you did, you couldn't prove it anyway because you have no way, you have no metrics to prove it. So that's kind of, you know, being a bit argumentative about it, but that's the truth of it, right? Now, to come back to, you know, what's important, how do you measure it? So another thing I would say to people is, look, if you're going to sell, who sells without having a CRM system? Probably very few. You would have to be a tiny company not to have a management system to bring in your direct sales. So now as you go to market through the channel, why would you not have a partner relationship management system? Because a fundamental mistake I think a lot of companies make is they try to say, and it really comes down to, you know, maybe not fully understanding all the sales motions of the channel. So when you go to market and you start to work with partners, you really need to think about, how do I separate and report my channel business / my partner business from my direct business, or just keep it as simple as my indirect business from my direct business? You have deal registration, and your deal registration should not flow into your CRM system until such times as those deals are approved to become an opportunity. So Dave touched on the funnel. So by standing it up, now you're starting to create that top of funnel, just like Dave described, and that's where the revenue starts to come from. So now I'm building my top of funnel. My partners are coming in, they're registering their business. There's lots of pieces even before that you warm them up to, you know, onboard them, train them, enable them. Scott touched there on getting them content. So now they're warm. Now you want them to start registering business. So they start to register it and they bring in net new customers. But what you don't want to happen is, say you use, you know, typically we would work with a lot of companies, they'll use Salesforce as their CRM. And I always say, look, don't let that channel business into Salesforce until such time as somebody has eyeballed it and approved it, and then that's the time. And what it really does is it helps keep your house clean in terms of, this is my channel business, this is my direct business, and the two should never cross really, or else you're going to get into a conflict situation. So they're just some simple things that having the PRM in place allows you to measure all of those touch points from, you know, how many partners have I onboarded? How many have I enabled? How many have looked at content to start generating leads? How many have I given leads to? How many have brought leads for themselves? How many of those leads have turned into deal registrations? And how many of those deal registrations have turned into opportunities? Now it's easy, they're all volume metrics, but that, you know, the opportunity now comes the value metric. So what was the conversion rates then of those deals to opportunities to close business? And that's, I suppose, the most fundamental one is the revenue pipeline. That's what everybody will ask about and measure, and there are a lot of metrics that sit beside that that help that revenue train as well. So a lot there, Margaret, but you know, there are some of the things that without a system you simply cannot, you will not grow, you will not be successful in the channel, and partners aren't going to love you for trying to do that on a spreadsheet because they simply can't see that spreadsheet.
Kenneth, Margaret, if I could jump in real quick, let me give a very real example that we did. You know, when we looked at a problem statement of our volume renewals, we've been talking a little bit about the top of funnel, but the ratable revenue, the recurring revenue, the renewal business is just as important, if not more so, getting that in-quarter on-time renewal rate up. And so when we looked at our volume renewals, the sub 100K renewals, we wanted to apply some incentives to increase that renewal rate. And so, you know, without a tool, I would be downloading spreadsheets and sending them to my distributors and partners and, you know, trying to manage that activity. Instead, they can log into the portal, see their renewals for the quarter, and know, and now I can apply an incentive that says, hey, if you hit 85% renewal rate in quarter, I'm going to give you a 2% rebate, you know, as an example. And that's something that we did. We saw an 8-point improvement on our renewals that we applied an incentive to.
That's amazing. And there's no more business critical metric actually if you're running a SaaS business or any kind of recurring revenue business than your NRR, right? And that's a direct correlation. And I think a very great to hear those kind of results as well. I think you know, that speaks to real impact and real business impact and real bottom line impact. Dave, anything to add to that?
I think if you tie the two pieces together there, the Kenneth's point of it has to be systemic. It has to be systemic in order to gain the visibility. And when I think about the visibility, we talk to our clients, it's about the visibility across our own company of a PRM, the ability for various people from the sales, the technical, the field, the people that manage the BUs to see what's happening with the partner base. And that gives Scott the ability to, when that board presentation comes up, everybody's in alignment because it's coming from a system that says we had this many partners sign up, we had this many sell this type of product, we have this many trained on that product, so our future looks bright. You know, it's all of those things that the system allows for us internally inside our own company to be well connected and coordinated around the value of the partner. And conversely, on the outside, it allows the partner to also be systemic about the way that they're interacting with that Skyhigh customer. There's a renewal coming up. There's a cross-sell, upsell opportunity, and the salesperson, the technical person, and the executive team of the partner can all see that. So to Kenneth's point, without the systems in place, there's going to be a lot missed, and there's going to be a lot of overlapping, very expensive conversations occurring time and time again. Put PRM in place, all of that becomes table stakes.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think you'll struggle with internal visibility unless you're able to show that and be able to show those wins and be able to communicate the value of partners, because people that aren't directly involved with partners will just be one step removed from it, right? It's an age-old issue.
Margaret, I'm sure that you've been in rooms where you know, someone says, well, I think the partner source was 35, and somebody else says, I think it's 0, and somebody else says, and everybody has different data. You know, put the system in place that Kenneth's talking about, and now we have one single source of truth. We're not going to waste time on arguments. It's 35, right? So that's key for all the listeners out there, I think.
Yeah, totally agree.
Or to solve it, but I'll solve it for you. And the business cases, you start to expand what that tool becomes, and it's just one platform. You know, Dave and I have worked for companies where we've had 50 channel tools, and we had to do ease of doing business surveys just to figure out what's wrong with it. This simplifies that.